All right, everybody, thank you so much for coming down. What we're going to do, we tried this the other night and we tried to just jam too much stuff all into 1 hour. So we decided to break it up into 3 different parts and go just a little bit deeper than we were able to the other night. So part 1 tonight is going to be our buyer's first disposition strategy. And we're going to really deep dive into why having a good understanding of where your buyers are at before you even start your marketing is important. And then as part of that, also how to find buyers quickly and effectively so that you can move your deals fast, right? Because that's the biggest hurdle all of us have is closing that date from buy contract to closing, right? We want to compress that time as quickly as we can. Part 2, we're going to do on Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Hopefully that's not too early for the West Coast people. And that is going to be talking about making multiple offers and acquisitions in general. So what kinds of things should you say to your buyer or to your sellers? I'm sorry. There are things that you should talk to the seller about that you want to make sure you cover at the beginning, because you may have to come back to it again at the end. So it's more than just, can I buy your house and at this price, right? So there's a whole, almost a dance that you play with the or that you do with the seller to get to where you need to be, and just kind of put some markers in the ground in case you need to come back on things like price or condition. And then part 3 will be next Tuesday at 8 p.m. That'll be the kind of the final part. That's more of systems, how we virtually wholesale across the country, our processes, SOP, checklists, kind of boring stuff like that, but things that are super important to keep you on track. So, all right. So with that being said, I think we've got everybody in here. Let's go ahead and get started. So tonight I spent all day. I really want to make sure that I give you guys a lot of content. It's just all content. But I wanted to keep it very simple, easy to understand, and something that you can implement tomorrow in your business, right? So very simple processes. I go to a lot of these webinars and and boot camps and things like that, and people love to razzle and dazzle you and tell you these really cool, fancy things that are like rocket science, but it's just not something that you can implement because it's so crazy complicated. And we know that there are certainly complicated things in real estate, but let's really nail down the simple stuff and master that, and then we can add on like layers of a cake, some of the other type stuff. So cool. We're also going to talk about obstacles that we all face as investors. This is there's definitely a commonality between all of us, whether we're rehabbers or wholesalers or landlords. There are just obstacles that we all face, and I'll talk about some of the ways that we've overcome those things. We're also going to do 4 case studies on deals that I've done recently here in our company. And the last thing is I'm going to actually go into the process of how we sell our deals. Not in general. I mean, I'm going to lay it out for you, the process that we use from the time that the dispositions part of our business gets that contract all the way through. So yeah. And just as kind of a little bit of an overview so that you understand how Nationwide Property Liquidators works. I have a partner, Tag Thompson, great guy. He handles all of our lead gen and acquisitions, right? So he handles that complete side of our business. It's actually on the other side of that wall. That's why I keep pointing that way. So it's his job to go out and do all of our marketing, and then he manages our acquisitions managers. And we've got a really great team on that side as well. So what they do is they go through the process all the way up to getting it under contract, and that's when it comes over here, right? So I take it from that point. Actually, I have a team that does all this stuff. I don't do a lot of it myself, but we do a lot of marketing and data research to pull buyers. Then we've got, sorry, people keep jumping into the room here, so I'm admitting them. We do data on our side. I've got a dispositions manager. She has a team underneath her. And then we also have a transaction coordinator and bookkeeping, and we deal with all of those. So kind of just to give you a 40,000 foot overview of how it works for us, and we will dive into all of that. All right. So let's keep going here. So 2 of my favorite principles in business are time compression and speed of implementation. right? So these are two things that some really smart, rich people taught me relatively early on. So time compression. So all of us have goals, right? All of us at the beginning of the year, we had that list of things that we were going to do. And when you look at that, and a lot of us will, me included, will say, okay, over the course of this year, I want to rehab 5 houses, or I want to buy 3 rental properties, or I want to run a 5K. That's never been on my goal, but for some people, so maybe it's, well, by September I'm going to be able to do X, Y, and Z. So the idea of time compression is a lot of times we give ourselves far too much time to do something, and then 2 things happen. One, it takes a long time to do it if we do it, but in stretching that out, a lot of times we forget, or the desire to accomplish that goal goes away, right? So by time compression, when you have a goal or you have something that you want to accomplish, the idea is to really look at it and say, what is the quickest way that I can get to the end, right? And that's a question I ask a lot of new investors that'll come in and talk to me, and I want to do this, that, and I want to do all these things. I say, okay, well, what does the end look like, right? Because that's really the only important thing. What does the end look like for your business, or for you to retire when this is all over? What does the end look like for you? For me, it's to be able to travel the world and be on vacation and spend time with my family. So what's the quickest way we can get there, right? And we'll talk a lot about that on Saturday with how I've been able to do that with my rental properties, and I've taught some other people to do that. But everybody's is going to be different. So the way that I do it may not be the way you do it, but understanding that principle is really important, because a lot of times we just take for granted that we have forever to do something. So the other thing is speed of implementation. And what this means is, the idea behind this is, all of us have great ideas, right? We've all laid in bed at night and thought, oh my God, this is a brilliant idea. I'm the only person who's ever thought of this. Or I've been in the shower and thought, my God, this is the answer to all my problems in my business. And typically what happens is, you get out of the shower, you shave, you get dressed, you go about your day, you stop at McDonald's, and then you've forgotten. So what speed of implementation means is, how quickly do you take that idea and put it into action in your business? So if you've ever gone to a conference, right? We all go to these things before they end up 10 times in COVID. We write down all the things that we're going to do, all those great ideas, and then nothing ever happens. It kind of stays in your drawer in a little notebook, and you never go back and implement those things. So successful people will come out of something like that, whether it's it's a meeting or a conference or a webinar like this, and go, oh, that was a really great idea, but never implement it. And then what happens is, you never advance, you never get any better. So speed of implementation, how quickly can you, put into action the things that you've learned, right? Because that's how you grow. Like, we don't grow in these massive leaps and bounds. The way companies and people grow are little by little, small steps, right? So those are 2 of my favorite things, and I like to talk about those a lot. So a little bit about me. I have been married 19 years. I have a super patient and supportive wife. She's been on board for just about all of our shenanigans, from rehabbing houses to starting new businesses to moving across the country. She's been really great. I have 2 sons. They're both married. I have 1 grandson, little Henry. We like to call him Hank the Tank, but my son's wife does not like that very much. I have a English bulldog, which I know a lot of people have them, and everybody understands that they are the most stubborn dog that exists on the planet. But Fat Petunia, as I call her, my world pretty much centers around her now that our sons are grown. So anytime we want to travel, we have to make sure Petunia is taken care of. I grew up in the Boston area, actually right outside of Lowell, Mass, which for you history buffs, that's the kind of the birthplace of the Industrial Revolution. That's where everything started. Graduated with a degree in criminal justice, which seemed like a great idea at the time, but it was pretty useless up until the time I got tenants. And understanding the court system has come in really handy. But after I got out of college, I spent about 20 years in home improvement, retail, professional sales. So working for companies kind of like Home Depot and Lowe's. I did that for 10 or 15 years, but then I went into pro sales and worked for 84 Lumber, Pro Build, companies like that. So a long background with dealing with contractors and building materials, and just super familiar with that kind of stuff. And kind of within that, I can't believe the price of lumber these days. It's unbelievable. So so what happened? How did I get from, I went from Boston, I moved to Florida for a little bit, and then we decided we needed to relocate after 2009 and the crash, right? Because in Florida, you know, if wherever you guys are from, I don't know how many of you guys are from Florida, but I can tell you in Florida, the market dropped about, 25% in 6 months, and then another 25% after 6 months after that. So, so the picture on the right, that's my family. My brother Thomas is there with the black shirt. Him and my wife in the gray sweatshirt. We were in Orlando and we said, well, this is bad. Like, what's going on here is really terrible. And we had been to some seminars and looked at emerging markets. And one of the markets that they talked about was Chattanooga. So in 2009 or late 2008, what was just announced was a Volkswagen plant coming to Chattanooga. Chattanooga is a small city, 250, 275,000 people. And something like Volkswagen coming in here and giving 10 to 15,000 jobs was a really big deal, right? Those are the kinds of things you're looking for if you're looking for a market that's about to pop, to have, to have some kind of growth. Well, not only did Chattanooga have Volkswagen come in, but Amazon announced that they were going to open a fulfillment center here, one of their big warehouses, and thousands of people get employed there. But in also evaluating markets, and this is something that's been really useful for me as our company's gone virtual, is understanding the economics in different markets, right? So, if you look at Florida, just dropped off of a cliff in the last recession in the late 2000s. But when we looked to other markets, one of the things that we found was Chattanooga had only taken a really small dip. One of the things that we were able to attribute that to was it was a smaller kind of secondary city, but it had a really good employment base, right? So there were lots of diverse places where people worked. One of the things Chattanooga is known for is actually Blue Cross and Unum. Those are two big insurance companies. But with adding in Volkswagen, without adding in Amazon, we've got the textile mills down in North Georgia. So it's a very diverse economy here where, unlike Florida, where when the economy stopped and construction went in the toilet and then tourism died, that was just the reason for the collapse in Florida. So that's why we picked Chattanooga. A lot of people always ask how we ended up here, especially being from Boston and then Florida and then Chattanooga. And I just like to explain that because that goes a lot into market research and trying to figure out what different markets you should go to. You should definitely look at like the population, sales over time. Has it gone up? Has it gone down? And one of the interesting things about Chattanooga when we came here, as Thomas and I were running around and we were buying up these low-end houses, because the national news, the Today Show and the nightly news and all those things were talking about the big recession that was going on nationwide. Everybody thought it was terrible every place, but here in Chattanooga, it actually wasn't, because they'd had such stability for so long. Their drop was only maybe 10 or 15%. You can go back and look that up. But people here thought it was the end of the world, like it was California or Florida or New York. So we were able to really come in and just negotiate some incredible deals. And, the takeaway there is that what we had learned even before we came here is that markets, go up and go down, never as a country, right? Like the whole country doesn't go up and go down altogether, right? Some parts go up, some parts go down. And that can be on a state level, a county level, or a real micro level of like one community, or, maybe one particular business goes out and, it really affects a neighborhood. So it's important to understand that, just because West Palm Beach is up, Fort Myers may go down even within the same state. So yeah, anyways, so we came to Chattanooga. We just, Thomas, Heather, and I, we had that idea of, burn the boats, right? Everybody's heard that story. The Vikings pulled up and up on the shore, and they burned their boats so that there was no retreat, right? We came here with not a lot. I know Thomas and I both tell the story. I think the three of us came here with $5,000. So we came here very determined to make real estate work. And the company that we started at the very beginning was Chattanooga Property Liquidators. So we came here and we had the grandest of intentions, like most people, to buy multifamily properties, right? That's like the dream. Everybody in the room here probably has the same dream. We're all going to buy a bunch of multifamilies. But what we realized was like, that's hard and you got to have credit. And in 2009, like people weren't lending. Banks had no interest in lending because they just taken on a bunch of toxic debt. So, so we started wholesaling, right? And the way that we did it, wholesaling then was a completely different business than it is now. So now everybody has, and I'm gonna sound like that old guy, like when I was young, you did kind of like three things. You could drive for dollars. You send a little postcard or handwritten yellow letter. You could go put out bandit signs, and you could door knock. Like those, that was it. Like those were sort of your options. Skip tracing wasn't a thing. Nobody was cold calling. Texting on any kind of mass platform had not happened or been even developed yet. So all those things are very recent. So what we did, people all ask oftentimes, like, what did you guys do to be successful? Well, we just outworked everybody. We would put out every single Friday night 100 bandit signs, like we buy houses type things. And that may not sound like a lot, but anybody in the room here who's actually gone out and put out 100 bandit signs knows that it's a daunting task. And we did it every single Friday, right? So it did not matter if it was raining. We don't get much snow here, but if it snowed or we had something to do, like if we started at 1 in-the-morning, we started at 1 in-the-morning, but we went out every single week and we put out those signs. And that was how we generated leads. So, we're like the definition of bootstrapping your way to success. We didn't come with a lot of money. We didn't, just have credit cards just burn up, hiring somebody to do these things for us. So, everything that we do, and Thomas does in his business now, we learned the hard way, right? It was just a different time. So over those years, Chattanooga Properties Liquidators has evolved into Nationwide Property Liquidators. My partner in that business now is Tag Thompson. Let's see, we also have the Chattanooga Investor Hub. I've got a bunch of rental properties now, actually almost 70. But MPL Real Estate Investments, that's our main wholesaling company now, but I also have CHB Investments and partners in Titletown Property. So we just have a bunch of different companies that have kind of all evolved out of coming to Chattanooga, not knowing anybody, and putting out bandit signs and just working harder than anybody else. So yeah, just kind of a little backstory on us. So this is where we're at now. This is part of my team. This is part of our dispositions team. So I did a little live earlier and did a walk through the office here. I'm going to say we a lot because my team is really, they do a lot of, they're there to execute the vision that's in my squirrel cage of a brain, and they do just absolutely an amazing job. But they have a plan, and they execute that every single day, and that's how we're able to do $1 million plus a year in assignment fees. So I'm super thankful to them there. They are awesome. Here we are. One thing we do at MPL is we do a ton of training, right? So I want to make sure that when the girls that work for me get on the phone and they're selling properties and they're out talking to investment buyers, rehabbers, landlords, that we want them to know what they're talking about. So we don't just stick them on the phone and like hope for the best. I run them through a 4-day starter course, and that's like the basics of real estate. So before we'll even allow them to make bad calls, we get them all on the phone. We bring them in for 4 days. I stop everything that I'm doing, and we'll take them back there and we teach them everything from different types of deeds to mortgages to this is what real estate is. This is how investment real estate is different from retail real estate. And we go through 4 days of that, just kind of as an overview, and then we start getting more and more specific all the way down to what their job is. So training is something that's super important to me, and making sure that everybody on the team is able to execute at a high level. This is our full team, or most of them. This was at our Christmas party back in December, pretty much before the drinking really started. This was kind of at the beginning we caught them. And like I said, some of those are acquisitions people, transactions people, a lot of marketing people in there. My partner Tag in the back with the very fancy, nice beard. And but yeah, that's our team that executes everything that we're looking for. So like, why should you believe anything that I say? So I've been doing this a long time, almost 20 years. I think next June will be 20 years. Um, like I said, in 2009, when we relocated to Chattanooga, we became full-time wholesaler. Like, there was no other option. This was it. We picked Chattanooga. We decided to come here for a number of reasons, because it was a great market. It was an emerging market, and we saw the potential in it. But we knew one person. We had come up a couple of times, and I knew one realtor, a young guy named Marshall Castleman, who's over in Charlotte right now. But that was it. Like, literally, you talk about burning the boats and going someplace for real estate. That's what we did. We had no support system, no family, no nothing. We just came here to make it happen, or just die trying. So that's the level of commitment that we had. So over the 12 years, 11 years since then, I bought a little over 70 rental units, done a bunch of flips, 23 flips, which I had to add them up because I didn't think it was that many. Single families, mobile homes, and then of those 70 rental units, I've done just a ton of remodels on those. Some of them all the way down to the bare studs. But why should you listen to me? I'm a successful realtor, I guess, by any measure. Not the most successful. There are certainly people that I aspire to be like, but I've trained lots of investors, a lot of them here in town, that have gone on to become super successful. In fact, I was at one of them. One of my older partners, Justin, he actually owns a title company now, and they closed a property for me today, him and his wife. So super happy for all of them. But with TAG, what we've done here is we've built one of the biggest wholesale operations in the country, Nationwide Property Liquidators. I would encourage all of you to go over there and take a look at all of our properties. And if you want to buy one, give us a call. We're happy to sell it to you. I think there's 30-something properties on there right now this week that we're moving. But most of all, I tell you, it's really weird. I'd love to teach and help people, but I have incredible anxiety being up on a stage. So, but I do really love talking to people and seeing what your issue is and how we can figure that out. And usually, and this is for me too, usually there's just one little thing that's just stuck in your brain that for some reason the gear won't turn until you figure out what that one little thing is. And what I've learned is, by being around people that are more successful than me, or at least people that are doing the same thing at the same level, they usually have the answer for whatever that kind of hurdle and stumbling block is. So definitely love to help people, and that's one of the reasons that I'm doing this tonight. So all that sounds good, but do you actually close deals? Yeah, here's a screenshot of our bank account, which I'm not going to leave up here forever, but you can see that these are all recent things. We're actually closing deals, some of them big, some of them small. One thing that I tell people is, everybody's like, well, I want to do that $47,000 deal like you did. Well, I mean, that sounds really great, but that's like being a professional basketball player and saying, I only want to hit 3-pointers, right? It doesn't make any sense for that to be your strategy, because it's just impossible, right? And doing the $40,000 and $30,000 deals in your business, that's fantastic. Like, we all want that, right? You always want to shoot for the very best that you can do. But I'll tell you, the 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, $10,000 deals, those are the base hits and the doubles, right? Those are the things that fuel your business and get you through to the next big hit. So definitely always aspire. Like, I can tell you, here in our company, our goal is $20,000 deals. Okay, that may seem like a lot to someone who's an individual wholesaler, who $5,000 is a great lick. And there was a time in my life where that was too. But now I have 20 employees in a 6,000 square foot office, so my overhead is a lot, right? So we probably pass on deals that some people would take, just because we need bigger deals. And to be able to do that, that's one of the reasons that we wholesale virtually, because it's easier for me to do one deal in 30 markets than to try to do 30 deals here in Chattanooga. There's a specific set of problems with, in any one market, trying to do that number of deals. Because what's going to happen is you're going to burn out your buyer pool. If you're dumping 2 properties a day on your buyers, they're going to get fatigued. And one property comes in at 9 a.m. and they start looking at that, and all of a sudden noon, another property shows up, and now this one, they, you know, they start looking here, but then they go back here. And what happens is they can't ever make a decision. So one thing I like to caution people, like if you're going to do marketing, really don't ever drop more than one per day in a market. Give your buyers time to look at that property and absorb it and make a decision on whether or not that's a deal for them. But if you start dropping, 3-4 properties a day, or even as you're resending them out, sending them that way, your buyers just won't be able to handle that. It just gets to be too much. So yeah, so hopefully that makes some sense. So overall, what my goal here for you tonight is, and we're going to get into the meat of stuff here in just one second, is I want you to be able to compress time and go faster. And hopefully what I'm going to talk about tonight, we're going to go super deep on some things, is that you can take the things that we're doing here in our business, implement that into yours, maybe one thing, maybe two things, maybe three things, and you can go faster and maybe jump up to that next level a little bit quicker, right? Okay, so this was an event that I spoke at with Tag back, I think a week or two ago down in Houston. It was really a really good event. So let's see. So let's start with this because it's something that absolutely drives me bonkers, and it's the biggest lie in real estate. If you get a good deal, it will sell, right? So we've all seen that on Facebook, and usually you see it in one of these big Facebook forum groups, and it's usually someone who's never done a deal before, giving somebody else who's never done a deal before some advice. If you just get a good deal, it'll sell. You won't have to worry about it. Well, I mean, here's what I can tell you. I got 4 contracts sitting on my desk today that our company got, and I think every one of them is a good deal. However, that deal sitting on my desk does not mean it will sell, right? So it's a dumb thing to say. It doesn't make any sense, because the truth is, yeah, if it's a good deal, it may sell easier, right? But there's still 2 problems. And let me even stop there. When I say it's a good deal is, if you think of like a pie chart, a good deal, what I would say is appeals to the broadest mass of people, right? So like all of us get calls if you're a wholesaler. Well, do you have properties, in the best part of town that's brick and less than 20 years old and a 3-bedroom, 2-bath? Okay, yeah, sure, right? I mean, everybody wants the perfect deal. But the reality is that's like getting the $50,000 wholesale deal, in a secondary market. They're really hard to find. I mean, they come along, right? If you get up to the plate enough and swing enough, at pitches, you're going to hit that grand slam. But, that perfect deal, it just doesn't come along enough, right? So regardless, somebody has to do the work to move it, right? If it's a good deal, a bad deal, an okay deal, no matter what it is, somebody actually has to go out and do something. So a contract sitting on your desk just doesn't sell itself, right? So you have to have a process for moving that deal, right? And in a minute here, we'll kind of go into it pretty deep about what that process is that we do. And not every deal you get is going to be perfect, right? Not every deal is going to be that perfect 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 20-year-old house in a great part of town that's going to be an easy rehab for everybody. And in today's market, and it's so competitive, those are really hard to get, right? Because everybody's looking for high equity, vacant, 10-year-old houses. So those are a struggle. And if you're going to have some type of consistent business that runs month after month, week after week, and gives you predictable income, you're going to have to do a lot of marketing, right? You're going to have to understand where you want to be marketing, and understand what your buyer wants, what he's willing to pay for that type of property, even on your acquisition side. And, so you get it under contract at the right price, and then how you market that is really super, super important. So you cannot run your business looking for the perfect unicorn deal. I did a deal on some rental properties once that I bought with owner financing that we can talk about on Saturday. It was like $1 million deal with nothing down. Again, I tell people that and they're like, that's perfect. That's the only kind of deal I want to look for. Sure. Okay. Well, me too. Right. But the only way I find that deal is by throwing out this really huge net, pulling in all the leads that I can, and then evaluating all those leads. Right. And once you've done that marketing and all that work and you've got these leads, well, you have to monetize them. Right. Like this is a business. This is what we do. right? This is what you do. And we're in the marketing business too, if anybody hasn't ever told you. So, so now that you've got these leads and you've paid to get them, because leads are expensive, right? How do you turn that into dollars? And sometimes it's going to be a $5,000 deal. Sometimes it'll be 20, sometimes it'll be 40. But in a business, you have to create revenue, right? You have to have a revenue stream so that you can pay the bills, turn on the lights, pay your VAs or whoever it is that you've got going. So, so that does drive me crazy. If you get a good deal, it'll sell, and I ramble about that all the time. So, so yeah, so here are some obstacles and roadblocks that we all face. So whether you're working virtual like us or working in your own city, which we also do deals here in Chattanooga, you have to be able to move your deals quickly and effectively. I'll fix that. So, right, I mean, that's just kind of common sense, but you have to have a plan to do that, right? It's more than just an idea like, I'm going to run a marathon this year, and then never do anything about it. So you have to have a plan. A couple things that you have to understand. So all the way through your process, what's the value of your deal? You've really got to know how to understand how to comp your property, right? And comping it, like, you actually have to be able to comp it two different ways. So on your acquisition side, you comp from low to high, right? Because chances are the property that you're looking at, it's probably got some type of distress, right? Generally, those are the types of properties that we find. In the 1,000 wholesale deals I've done, 98% of them have some type of distress. And it varies, right? Varies from a burnout to, a landlord that can't get his tenant out, to everything in between, full rehabs, light rehabs, paint and carpet, lipstick type stuff, to it's burned down and the land needs to be scraped. So understanding how to comp and understanding what other properties in this neighborhood have sold for, right? So, like, here's a little tip that I've been trying to explain to people for 10 years. The 70% of ARV minus repairs, it doesn't matter, right? It's like, if you're going to do one deal a month, I guess you can do it that way. But if you're going to have any kind of volume, right, where where you're having like some consistency, you need to be able to evaluate deals very quickly, right? We actually created a software based on this idea. But essentially what it is Mrs. Smith calls me in, or calls in with her deal. She gives me a little bit of information and says, yeah, it needs a little bit of work. Well, chances are, if I take all the comps in that neighborhood and I sort them from low to high, chances are it's going to be in that low area, right? And I don't want to get too much, we're going to talk a lot about this on Saturday, but that's where I know that's where I need to be, because I can look at those cash sales and see what cash buyers are paying. So cash buyers are paying 35 to 42,000. That's what they're going to pay for my deal too, right? It's not, those deals, those houses are probably in the same condition, the same shape. I don't need to figure out what the repairs are going to be. I know they're going to be in that range, and we'll talk a lot about that on Saturday. So if I know cash buyers are paying, 32 to whatever I said, 32 to 35, if I put it under contract at 20, I should definitely be able to mark that up to 30 and blow it right out the door, right? So that's, in the very shortest of terms, that's how we comp. Now, flipping over and kind of changing your head to dispositions, we have to look at it the other way. So, because our buyers want to know, what's this property worth, right? So, maybe that property we sell for 30 or 35,000, whatever we can get for it, now we need to know what's the ARV, what's the after repair value. And, so if our person could sell that property for 120, but it needs $30,000 in work, how do you work backwards to make sure that this is a deal for your buyer? So two ways to comp: high to low and low to high, and you have to know which side of the company, or I guess, depending upon what you're doing, whether you're buying or selling, is how to figure that out. So buyer's first strategy. This is something that I've teach my staff, and I've been teaching it for a long time. It's sort of evolved into this, but the idea of starting with the end in mind, right? So you can't do anything if you don't know where you're going to end up, right? And that doesn't mean you have to have every single step laid out, but in wholesaling, what we do know So we do know that at the end of the day, we want, well, all the way at the end, we want to cash a check. We want a property to close, right? So beyond that, who's going to buy our property? A cash buyer. Okay. So a cash buyer, what types of properties are easiest to sell to a cash buyer? Vacant, right? Again, hard to have 100% vacant properties if you're going to do 100 deals a year. But ideally, like, let's start off simple. So we want vacant properties. I know that they have to be discounted. Because cash buyers want a deal, right? We've all heard, I'm paying cash. What kind of deal can I get? Well, Mr. Smith, I understand, but we only sell to cash buyers. And all of our properties are priced that way. So we want to cash checks. We want to sell to cash buyers. Cash buyers want a discount, right? So we know, we can't sell a full MLS value. Sometimes we're in a little bit of a wonky market right now. So some of our deals are actually approaching that because there's so much competition. Yeah, so cash buyers, they want a deal. Vacant is better. So then within that, we need to have somebody who needs to know how to negotiate with cash buyers. So that's kind of important. But what deals are we going to get as a company, right? So that takes us all the way very back to the beginning, or if you want to think of it like as a funnel, right? You know what's going to come out, what type of deals your buyers are looking for. What are you going to put in the top of that funnel? So, and that's more than just vacant houses, right? There are some markets where, like a buddy of mine who works in Austin told me $8,000 to get a contract there because the leads are so expensive, right? So if you understand that, like, is that a place where you want to spend your money? I don't know, maybe it is, but if you're going to market in Austin, you're certainly not going to market in areas where, there aren't cash buyers paying, right? So, we've all only got this bucket of so much marketing dollars, right? I have students and I talk to them, I have $600 to $800 per month that I can spend. Okay, cool. How are we going to effectively deploy that money? Or I have $10,000 to deploy, or in our company, we're a little bit more than that. So how are we going to spend that money smart? I've got a friend that owns a Home Investors franchise, and he was telling me about a year ago how they were doing their marketing. And I just couldn't believe, like, they were just blanketing these rural areas with postcards. And I said, what are you doing? Right? Like, yeah, you'll get a deal out there, but you'll never be able to sell it, right? Because buyers don't want to buy there. So the idea of understanding where the cash buyers are at and targeting your marketing there it's so important, right? Because again, all that money that he had maybe spent to market all these rural counties where when he got a contract, he could never sell it. He could have taken that money and concentrated it where the cash buyers were. So, we talked earlier about like picking markets, and like Chattanooga was an emerging market. So when you're going out and looking for a new market, one of the things you want to look at is, are there cash buyers here, right? Like, are cash transactions happening here? Are there rehabbers working here? What's going on with MLS? Is there action? Is this like a hot, county, zip code, state, whatever it is? We really drill down on that every time we go into a new market, so that we make sure we're spending our money wisely, because we've messed up. We've gone to markets that we did not do that in, and we spent a ton of money and actually got a lot of contracts, but then could not ever sell them because we didn't know what our buyers were willing to pay. So we were getting them too high, and then we were getting them in areas where absolutely nobody wanted to buy any properties. Then if you've ever been to St. Louis, there's like 20 square blocks that is just the craziest area where you can get these amazing old townhomes that were probably the most beautiful thing once upon a time for next to nothing, and nobody wants them. So anyways, so buyers first, that's very important. Understanding the end, putting the end, understanding the end before you start. But even after all that, you have to have a good marketing plan. All right. So there's more to it than just putting it on your website or, making a Craigslist post. Not that Craigslist posts are bad. Interesting story. When I belonged to the RIA down in Orlando, we went to this marketing meetup thing or class, I forget what it was. And It's probably like a Wednesday night, and the guy takes us outside into the parking lot. There's like 15 of us. And says, gather, everybody gather around, kind of gather close. And he has this black or brown paper bag and pulls out a bunch of these, like, the little like rubber balls that you get out of the machine at the grocery store. Well, it has a handful of those, and he says, I want you to think about this ball, right? So this is, you're going out and you're putting a sign in the window, like one of those signs you get at Lowe's, house for sale, and you're going to put that sign in there, right? And he whips it up in the air, and it comes down and doesn't hit anybody, and just bounces away. Okay. So then he says, okay, well, you're going to do that, and put a sign in the yard, right? Because you're really frisky. House for sale or house for rent, like, it doesn't matter. It's marketing. So then 2 balls, throws them up, still comes down. 15 of us, doesn't hit anybody, just bounces away. Okay. So then he said, well, maybe you get really creative and you can put a sign at the end of the street with an arrow. So now we have 3 balls, throws up in the air, hits one person in the shoulder, the other 2 miss, right? So, what he was trying to explain to us and impart on us is you have to do a lot of marketing, right? You have to get out in front of people, right? So then he takes a whole handful of balls, throws them up in the air, and then starts popping everybody. And what he was trying to explain to us is, if you're going to have any success, you've got to play all of your aces, right? So you've got to do the sign in the window, the sign in the yard, a directional. But back then, this is how long ago it was. Put an ad in the paper, and put it on Craigslist, and whatever it is, you've got to have a list of all the things that work and make sure that you do them consistently, right? And that's how you get your deals in front of people. You've got to have a good marketing plan. It just can't be, I'm going to do one thing and hope for the best. And I see that a lot because I'm on probably 50 wholesalers email lists, and I look at deals every day. And the reason I'm looking at their deals is because I'm trying to see what they're doing that I can implement into my own office, into my own marketing, right? And typically what I see, and it's discouraging, and sometimes I write these guys back, it'll be like the worst picture ever, or a picture off of Google that has the little red thing and says Google, and like no information, like 3 bedrooms, 77,000. I'm like, come on, man, nobody can make a decision from that, right? Nobody's going to be interested in that deal unless you just get lucky. But luck isn't a plan, right? So having good marketing and understanding what it is that your buyer needs from you, right? Like, what do they need to make a buying decision? And giving them all of that information. When I used to, during, the 2010, 11, 12, I was buying a lot of properties off of MLS and making just a ton of offers. And, MLS, right? We all look at it, pull it up, and, you click through the pictures. And if you have any experience, you can make an offer pretty well from that. You don't really need to go look at the property because you assume that they're telling you the truth. And I put this one property under contract. I drive by it all the time, and it just drives me crazy every time. And I got there for the walkthrough. Like, in the living room, there's this big hole that goes all the way up, and there's a tarp on top on the ceiling. I'm like, well, what is this? Like, this isn't new. How is this not in the photos, right? So, that's something that always is in the back of my mind when I'm marketing to my buyers. I want to give them so much information they can make a decision from sitting in their living room, right? We never hide anything, because the worst thing that can happen is I don't put that hole in the ceiling, and then some guy drives an hour and I have to show him this property, and he's out of his mind with me. Like, why wouldn't you have shown me this? I wouldn't have driven an hour. So, so good marketing is honest marketing. We're selling distressed properties. Let's just be upfront about it. Don't hide anything. It's just not gonna help you. In the end of the day, it's gonna hurt you. But even beyond that, now that you've got a buyer that you're talking to, right? How do you negotiate effectively with them? Because let's be honest, like, if you're a wholesaler and you're dealing with an investor, a landlord, or a rehabber, like, that guy knows how to negotiate, right? He's the guy who's in Lowe's and going like, hey, I know that vanity is 200, but I think I could give you 175. Like, these are people that negotiate all day long. So if you're in your dispositions business, and and it carries through to the people that work for you, they have to understand how to negotiate, right? And everything that goes into that. So we do just a ton of training on that. And the person I recommend is Chris Voss. If you want to get his book, Never split the difference. It's amazing. The best $99 you're ever going to spend is to get that masterclass program app, website, whatever it is. It's 99 bucks a year. And he's got like a 15-part, thing where he talks about how to negotiate. And if you don't know Chris Voss, he was the head hostage negotiator for the FBI. So get that $99. I use that to train every single one of our people. And we do like 2 classes a day, every day after they go through the initial 4 days. So shameless plug there for Chris Voss. But so you have to understand how to negotiate, right? And then, an obstacle and roadblock that we all face is growth, right? So if doing 1 or 2 deals a month is good, right? Like 3 or 4 would be better, and 5 or 6 would be great. So depending upon where you're at in your your business, are you you still work a 9 to 5, or do you still have a regular job and you're kind of doing this on your own, maybe after work? Because that's how I started. What can you do to do more business, or maybe take some of the parts of the business off of your plate that you're not good at? So what is it that you need to kind of build out your business and get it up to that next level? So maybe you cannot have that full-time job working for somebody else, and you can be full-time real estate. So that's an obstacle, right? How do you scale just beyond you? So enough boring stuff. Let's look at some case studies, right? So I'm going to talk about, these are some deals that we've actually done in our business in the last little bit. So let's see, here we are. Okay, so this is a deal a month or 2 ago. We did Little Gem Lane up in Ottawa. For those people that are on here that are from Chattanooga, you'll probably recognize this. So newer construction home. Buying contract on this one was $220,000, which I'll be honest with you, I thought was a little bit much. But it was we never got into this property to take pictures. We had to use pictures off of MLS because there were tenants in there that weren't paying. So that's a great tip for you guys. If you're working virtual, is to always Google search or Zillow search your property, and there may be pictures on there from the last time it was for sale. And we do that actually quite a bit to sell our properties. So newer construction home, I think it was built in 2011. I looked at it earlier and I don't remember now, but 220, we sold it for 245. We had a pretty good profit. And the way that we sold this one was just an SMS blast to local buyers. And this one was actually a contractor. I talked to him this morning. He's actually evicting these folks, and then he's going to flip it. He's going to clean it up and put it up for sale. And the only thing that's happened in the 2 months since I sold it to him is values have gone up. It's probably worth $15,000 more than he thought he was going to get before. So yeah, I mean, I'm not sure where the original lead came from. Probably SMS as well, because we do about 40,000 text messages a week to buyers in whatever market we happen to be working that week. But yeah, pretty basic deal. Nothing super special about it. Like I said, we never got in to take pictures before. We did the seller actually came up from Florida to do the final walkthrough, and that's when we got the buyer in there. And it was just like the picture showed. We explained to him that we had not been in the property and that we expected there to be some wear and tear. So yeah, that one was pretty simple, pretty straightforward. But yeah, again, and I'll talk about here after we get on the other side of this, kind of what that process is of what we do for a marketing plan for each property. But we just do a ton of marketing. And ideally, what we're looking to do is drive an inbound lead, right? So everybody that's taken a call or made a call, like, it's much better when somebody calls you and says, hey, I'm calling about that property you've got for sale. Way better than, hey, Bob, sorry to bother you. I know you're an investor in the area. Are you still looking for any more properties? Like, that's not a terrible call. It's way better than acquisitions, like calling people up cold and asking them that they want to sell. There we go. Sorry, had to mute some people. And so yeah, ton of marketing. We want inbound leads to come to us. They're faster and warmer leads, and they're easier to sell. So let's see. Here's one interesting one that we did down in Huntsville. We really like the Huntsville market. what I think makes Huntsville better than Birmingham. Well, there's a lot of things that make Huntsville better than Birmingham. I'm sorry for anybody that lives down there. Huntsville's just a newer kind of market, right? So what is going on down in, oh, I'm running so far behind, going on in Huntsville is there's a military base there. I think one or two military bases there. There's NASA, there's Space Camp, there's all these kinds of things, but all those really blossomed in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. So that was when all their expansion happened, right? So that's when all their houses were built. So you get stuff like this where it's newer-ish kind of homes, as opposed to like Birmingham, where it's a lot of stuff that was built in the late 1800s, 1900s, 1910. And we've got some sections of Chattanooga that are like that, where the house is kind of, wood frame. They got a little bit of a lean to it. But so this house was rented to like 9 boys, and it's enormous. You can't see here, but if you go on my website, it's there. But it like goes back, and there's sort of bedrooms. It's a little choppy. And even below that level of 3 or 4 white windows in the brick there's like another level that's kind of like a garage down on the other side. It's just a big house. It was like 3,500 square foot. It was enormous, had all these kids in it. And we went and got pictures. And, make sure I got everybody. Yeah, so we got pictures. I'm like, oh, I don't know. So what we did is we knew our end buyer was probably not going to be a rehabber, right? We knew our end buyer was going to be a landlord. So what we were able to do was sell this property based on the cash flow that was in there, because those students had no intention of leaving. So once we got all the pictures, it went out 3 or 4 days. It went right under contract. I'm pretty sure that's full price. Maybe we were out at 160, but sold pretty close to full price. And what we did is, one of the things that Narissa in my office does, she's like a sniper for pulling lists, is she'll go in and, 3907 West Crestview, she'll take a radius and maybe go out half of a mile or a mile and look for everybody who's bought a similar type of property, right? And with that, you have to have a little bit of creativity, right? You don't only want 3,500 square foot houses, because maybe a guy bought a 2,000 square foot house. So you have to play with those numbers just a little bit and understand how it works. And what we'll do on the first pass through is we'll kind of go out in concentric circles until we get to about 40 or 50 cash buyers or rehabbers. And then, we want that big of an amount, because by the time we skip trace them, it probably comes back with 25 or 30. And then we have a process that we work through with those people. But we try to be super intentional about who we're looking for, and we only call people, who are looking for deals like what we've got. And an analogy that I give is, I've told this a bunch of times, like I'm not the smallest boy, right? So I like chocolate ice cream. Surprise, chocolate Oreo ice cream is really good. But so if I was to have an ice cream truck and I'm going to sell ice cream, well, of course I feel like chocolate ice cream would be the best. So I go out and start selling ice cream, and people tell me they want strawberry. Like, I think strawberry ice cream is terrible, but if that's what people want, that's what I'm selling. So understand, the idea there is understand what it is that your buyers are looking for, because that's what you want to be bringing them, right? So, and in some wholesalers' minds, they'll say like, I don't want to go to the low income areas, right? Because I don't want to, I wouldn't want a $20,000 house, or I wouldn't want a $25,000 house. But what I can tell you is those areas are, if you were to drive through that area and kind of look at it, like most of those properties are not owner occupied. They're absentee owners, which means they're landlords, and landlords own those properties. And if you can bring them a property similar to what they bought at a good deal where it'll cash flow, they will buy those properties all day. So just because you don't want it doesn't mean, doesn't mean that somebody out there isn't a buyer out there for that property. So understand what type of property you've got, who your target buyer is going to be for that. And then once you know that, then you can go out and, and find the correct buyer for that property. So you just don't want it to be scattershot, I'm just going to send this deal to everybody, right? So yeah, so 135, 159 sold pretty quick, called a cash buyer. So anyways, this guy had bought a property just down the road, I think maybe the next street over. And it wasn't even like recent. It wasn't like within the last couple months. So, we expand our criteria out a little bit, especially when we're looking for landlords, right? So if it's a flip property, I might look for people who bought stuff, fairly recently. But landlords, they love to be keep their houses in the same neighborhood, right? I've got a street with a couple buildings and a couple houses. I love it because it's all really close. So if you have a landlord property, a property that's going to be geared towards a landlord, go up and down that street and look for absentee owners and, call those people like, hey, Joe, I know you've got a house at 2500 Crestview. I've got one at 39. Kind of looks like what you bought before. I've got a good deal on it because you can see what Joe bought his house for, right? That's all public record. So do that. That'll be a much faster way to sell your deals instead of just sending it to everybody in the state. Okay, here's one that closed last week. 1906 Broadway Avenue in Pittsburgh. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings in Pittsburgh, but when I looked at this, I'm like, oh my God, what a piece of crap. And it sold super fast. It's a row house. We don't really have those here, so I wasn't super familiar with how popular they were. But we picked this one up at 65 and sold it for 84 in just a couple of days. Nice, easy, double or triple. 19,000 was a good day. This one sold as an inbound call. So when we pull those cash buyers, what we'll do is we'll skip trace them. Sometimes we get their email. This one actually happened. We're on a nationwide cash buyer list, and we sent out a super targeted email blast and got a call pretty quick. Went back and forth a couple times because we had to get him in there. That's what really took the 4 days because it was tenant occupied. But yeah, it closed last Monday or something. I can't remember what I saw. But yeah, I mean, pretty basic. It wasn't super complicated. Pretty straightforward, easy deal. Didn't take a long time to sell it. And let's see. So here's one. This one we actually did 7 months ago, but it's a very interesting deal that I wanted to talk about. So Cleveland, Tennessee. It's a smaller Cleveland, Tennessee, not Ohio. It's about 30 minutes north of Chattanooga. Big rental market up there. There's some schools or universities, but these obviously weren't for the university. But what it was, if you could see here, there's 3 duplexes. They're all 1-1 duplexes. It's kind of that gray one, then the brown one, and then the white one to the left. And kind of the problem was the reason they had a problem selling before was it's 3 duplexes on 1 parcel and no bank wanted to fund it for anybody. So that's why they were willing to take a discount and just sell to a cash buyer because just tired landlord kind of stuff. So acquisitions did a great job, put it under contract at 105. We sold it at 145 in like less than 6 days for a nice profit of 40,000. A friend of mine who's a hard money lender funded it for him and had absolutely no problem because the value was it had to be over 200,000. He didn't even tell me, but he just was happy as a clam that we were making 40. So what we did on this one again, so thinking with the end in mind, like who's going to want to buy, 3 duplexes that are all 1-1s. And what we did was instead of just pulling a cash buyer list for Cleveland, we went in and we pulled a list of everybody who had bought 10 units or smaller. And then from that list, we were able to skip trace them. And we just sat down and just went right down the list and called those buyers and got somebody for it pretty fast. So the idea is just understand that you have to understand what type of property you've got and then who the buyer is for that property and understand it from their point of view, and then go out and use the data that's available to you to track down that buyer. And a little bit of work done on the front side will move your deals just a whole ton faster. So yeah, so how do we sell our deals so fast? One thing that makes us different from anybody else, and not everybody, there are certainly people that do it, is we're incredibly proactive, right? So there's nothing that we do where we're like, well, I just hope for the best. Like, we're going to put this out there and just cross our fingers and toes and hope that this thing sells. Like, we're very aggressive about going out and finding cash buyers because there's a buyer for every single property out there, right? I don't care, what type of property is, there's a buyer for it. I had a coaching client one time when I was down in Virginia, and we're sitting at some breakfast place, and there was a husband and wife team, and they were a little bit older, and the husband was kind of a cantankerous guy, and was like, I just don't think this wholesaling works all the time, and you just can't sell everything. I'm like, well, I mean, You know, I mean, there are some struggles sometimes. I'll be honest with you. I'm not telling you that everything is easy. And I happened to look like past him, and like across the street, there was this old like weathered barn kind of thing. Had a little bit of a lean to it. You could like see the light coming through. And what the heck was his name? Like Bruce or something. I'm like, hey, Bruce. So you see that building over there? Yeah. Okay. Well, would you buy that? Absolutely not. How about if it was $1,000? Well, it isn't a good location. Might be able to do something with that for $1,000. So everything is sellable, right? And if you have a deal that you're not able to sell, for those of you that are wholesalers, it's going to come down to one of a couple of different things, right? And generally, what I'll say is, prices, of course, would cure all problems, right? If everything was $1, everybody would buy it. But we can't always just fall back on. We can't always just fall back on price and getting things cheaper, right? Because the market is what the market is. People have Zillow. They can look up what their property's worth. So just like everything's not going to be $1. So let's kind of move past that. You have to understand how to comp your property. You don't want to be under contract too high, right? That hopefully that makes sense to you. But so price is a little bit of an issue. The second thing is maybe you underestimated repairs, or the seller lied to you, or the seller just didn't know, right? Most of the time when we find stuff, or our buyers find stuff in an inspection, termites or, something like that, or leaking sewage under a house, I'm going to be optimistic and believe in people and understand, hope that the seller didn't know. Like they just thought maybe their floors were a little bouncy. They didn't realize that they were, eaten up with termites. So that will account for it sometimes. And because of that, maybe you've priced it wrong, or you priced it high. You didn't anticipate some of those repairs. But the biggest reason generally is marketing, right? I mean, like you just didn't do enough marketing. You didn't put that deal in front of enough people. My company had a triplex a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago on Fisk Avenue. And we didn't sell it. For whatever, I mean, I know why we didn't push hard enough for walkthroughs, but we just failed on that one. We didn't sell it, right? So, so I saw that property pop up on my buddy Justin's website maybe a month later, and son of a gun, he sold it in like 4 days. Man, I lost my mind, and I went stomping out there like the Jolly Green Giant that I am, and like, how is it that this property sold? We couldn't sell it. And when we sat down and looked at it, we did a bad job marketing. We didn't market it as good. We didn't push it as hard as we should have. So even us, a big company, like we fail sometimes. And when those things happen, you need to sit down and look at your process and go, okay, where did I mess up? And you have to be honest with yourself. Like there's a gut check moment. Like we're not all perfect, believe it or not. Like we have a bad day and we make bad decisions, but we look back. You have to look back at those things that went wrong and go, okay, how do I fix this so that we don't do that again? Like, how do I put something in place so that we don't repeat the same thing over and over and over again? So those are great learning things. So how do we sell our deals so fast? I'm getting way off track here. So as soon as a deal is approved, and what that means is it's come from acquisitions, it comes over to dispositions. In our case, Taylor or I approve that. Meaning, approve means we're going to spend some money, right? So on our side, again, we're very aggressive with what we do in marketing for our buyers. So we spend money on it, right? So we'll pull a list of cash buyers around the property. It's kind of targeted, and it depends on what type of property it is. And I don't have just enough time to go into all of that, but we'll pay to skip trace it. Okay. We'll actually at the same time, because we'll use PropStream, and we'll instantaneously send out a form postcard with that property. Let's see if I can think about this till just now, but let's see if I've got one here in the drawer. Not. Of course not. But anyways, we send out a postcard to buyers that'll have a picture of the property. Hey, if you're looking for discounted cash deals, give us a call. So we do that, right? So we're playing all of our aces. Once that property is skip traced and comes back, then we're going to do a couple other things. But at the same time, it gets approved. Taylor in my office, she has a process for going out and finding someone to take photos and video. Right. So if it's not a deal here in Chattanooga and it's in Nebraska or Oklahoma or Kentucky or I don't know, one of the 15 markets that we're in, she has a process for finding somebody to go out and, take those photos, take those videos, and make sure that they're done correctly. Because the worst thing you do is have like the vertical iPhone, taking pictures this way. and instead of sideways. So we have a process for that. So by the time those come back, we've got our list of cash buyers. We upload our photos to the website. We give a great description. We tell a good story, right? Because stories sell. So even though, our website might say 3 bedrooms, 2 bath, here's what the taxes are, underneath it will describe the property and how somebody makes money on it, right? Because sometimes you have to explain that to people because they don't, maybe they can't envision it, right? There's a lot of different personality types and brain types. So, so if it's a, hey, here's a great deal for a landlord. These tenants are on month to month. The rent's about 20% under market. Here's what I think you could do without even putting a lot of money into it. I think you could go to these tenants and you could get the rents raised. And here's how you could, you could profit off of this deal. Or, maybe the answer is, hey, maybe you can move them out and, do X, Y, and Z. Right. So every property is going to be a little bit different, but you have to understand how that person or how your end buyer is going to make, they're going to make money on that. Right. So sometimes, if you can help them paint that picture for them, it makes it very easy for them to understand and then make a buying decision. So upload videos, good, or photos, good description. We do a YouTube video of every property and we post that as well. And that's one of the things that Taylor works with our boots on the ground people is, slow, how to go room by room, start at the front door, kind of pan the room, right? So we want to show the ceiling because we don't want holes in the ceiling. We want to show the floor. Is it hardwood? Is it carpet? Is it tile? What is it? Just kind of take that picture from the corners, right? Because you don't want to be in the middle of the room because it makes it look very small. So again, we've got a process for that. I throw it up on YouTube. We put some logos on it, and then all that gets packaged into the website, so that my hope is that a buyer can make a decision sitting in their living room or sitting in their office and go, oh, okay, great. Here's a video. Here are all the pictures. Here's 50 pictures of the property inside and out, what the street looks like, good description, what the taxes are, what the rent is, if it's rented, when those leases are up, what are all those things that they're looking for, right? So how did we figure that out? Some of those, because I'm a landlord and have a bunch of properties, so I know the things that I would want to know. Some of them are, if it's a rehab deal, it's because I rehab property, so I know what I would want to know as a rehabber. But then some of it comes from like 10 years of doing this and talking to buyers and thousands of buyers and understanding what is it that they need to know to make a buying decision, right? So that's one of the things we teach all of our students too, is try to move things along and make them, make their growth as fast as possible. So anyways, once the marketing is finalized, so remember that list that we pulled at the very beginning. So now we're ready to launch the property, right? So this is the point where we say if it took 2 days to sell, it's here, right? It's not 2 days from the day it got under contract. 2 days once our marketing is finalized. And when you're working in cities all over the country, like sometimes it takes 4 or 5 days, a week, 2 weeks to get photos because things happen, right? There's a tenant, or a seller who doesn't live in the same state as the house, which we're not in either. They've got tenants there and they have to make arrangements and COVID and just all these things. So sometimes there could be a little bit of time, but we have one person in our office who this is all they do is coordinate this stuff. Her name is Lucy. And, Lucy is kind of the, one of the hubs of the wheel, trying to work between acquisitions, dispositions, sellers, and tenants, and those things to get somebody in there to do the pictures as quick as we can. So anyways, once all that's back, and I know I'm going long and holding you all up here, but so the marketing comes back. So we use a texting platform. It's not Slide. No, Sly Broadcast is, I think, the RVM company. I can't remember who she uses for texting. I'm sorry. If you guys message me after, I'll be happy to tell you. But we'll text buyers, like those cash buyers of that list. Hey, I've got a cash flowing deal or a rehab in an area where you've purchased another property. Would you be interested? Something kind of broad like that. That gets calls coming in. The RVM is basically the same thing. Our dispositions manager who is handling that particular property. Every property that comes in, they record a new unique message. They give it to Narissa. Narissa puts it in the system, and those go out. We had like a 78% deliverability on text today, and 50 or 58 like RVM deliverability, which was super high. It was incredibly high today. And then we'll also send out an email. So we have a very crafted email template that goes out that has all the information, the videos, and just all those things, so that when the person opens up the email, So obviously good header line, because that's what gets your email open. Once they get the email, it's got to, or they open it up, it's got to have all the information so that we get a high click rate where they either click through to the website or click to watch the video, that type of stuff. So over the years, we've figured out, or I figured out, somebody's figured out the right marketing message to have for that stuff. So anyway, so once the marketing is all uploaded and sent out, now what we'll do, right, while we're waiting, because we've done all the stuff that's going to bring us inbound calls. Now is when our 4 dispositions managers will jump on the phone. They'll take that list of cash buyers and they start calling, right? So, so that's kind of how we do it in a nutshell. There's really, I mean, any one of those we could spend 4 hours talking about, but that's an overview of how we do it. Hopefully that's useful to you guys, and you can take that and kind of implement it in your business. So some lessons that I've learned the hard way is not having a way to find buyers fast is bad, right? That's bad. In Chattanooga, since I've been here for 10, 11, 12 years, whatever it is, I have this great organic list that's really great. Anybody that's been in one city for a long time probably has that. But once you go into a new market and you go virtual, what are you going to do, right? So you have to have a way to find buyers, because the worst thing that happens is time kills all deals, whether it's on the acquisition side or the disposition side. You've only got so long on that contract that you have with the seller, right? So I like to say, like, the minute that contract comes over and is signed, it's like you should hear that clock ticking in your head. Whether you put 15 or 30 days or 60 days, whatever it is that you put on your contracts, you've only got so long to execute on that before it just puffs into smoke and it's no good anymore. So so all those delays, not being able to get in to take pictures, that's a problem. That's why we'll sometimes just go ahead and pull the pictures that are off of Zillow or the last MLS listing, and we'll use that because we've got to get out there. We've got to get out there in front of these buyers as quick as we can. And maybe if I sent the email out on Monday and I've got legit pictures coming in on Thursday, I'll say that, hey, updated pictures coming this week. But I at least want to get on the phone with people and start talking to them and getting them to call us to find out about that deal. So time kills all deals. We've talked a little bit about marketing to each types of buyer. So obviously not every buyer is exactly the same. There's 2 main buckets. Like there's the rehabbers, and then you've got the landlords. And even within that list of rehabbers, right, there are some people that will take a fire burned house, some people that only want paint and carpet, right? So there are different people in there. And as you're talking to buyers over time, I really recommend having a great CRM and putting in notes so that when you get a property back in that market or in your own market, it's searchable. So if somebody's looking for red duplexes downtown, you can search your CRM and go, oh, hey, I need somebody who's talked about red duplexes downtown. So now you've got a list of 3 people to call, and that's a super targeted way to do this business. And on the other side with landlords, right? So some landlords want low income areas, some landlords want high A class stuff. Some landlords want multifamilies. I just got off the phone with a guy who has got some stuff in Florida and Texas and wants us to help move, which we should be able to do because we have a great database. But then maybe some landlords that you're going to talk to only want to do vacation rentals, VRBO, Airbnb. That's a great strategy right now. So there are going to be people that are just pigeonholed into that. So when you talk to them, you're storing them in your CRM as that type of buyer. When you get something, you can go back to them very easily. So once you figure out what type of property you have, who your buyer is going to be, then you can pull the lists that you need so that you can work smart, not hard. And again, not knowing how to negotiate with buyers, that's a problem. I like to say in the landlord business, I won't accept a tenant who's been evicted because I don't want a tenant who's smarter than me and knows more than me on the eviction process. So kind of the same thing with buyers. And this is one of the reasons that we train our staff so good. We want to make sure that they can kind of stand on a level playing field with buyers, because as you know, some of them aren't always the nicest of people, and they'll be mean to the girl on the phone. So we like them to not be able to be bamboozled. Having good paperwork, having good paperwork is pretty important. Just about everything that's in my contract is in there for a reason, because some catastrophe has happened. Someone's threatened to sue us, or we haven't been able to get earnest money back from somebody. So we have really good paperwork that we paid attorneys a bunch of money to review. And and anybody that knows me, and there's a bunch of people on here that probably do know me, I used to be a tad of a control freak. I probably still am, but you can't grow that way, right? It's at some point you have to let go and train somebody to do the parts of your business, because you just can't do everything that needs to be done, right? I know people, and I had this conversation at the title company today with somebody. It sounds so easy, right? People make wholesaling sound like the simplest of things. It's just get a contract, sell it, go to the title company, collect a check. But there's so many bits and pieces of parts in there, just on a normal deal that have to be done to get to the end. And and then when you throw in the crazy stuff that happens, right, like dead people and affidavits of heirship and all the other squirrely things that happen, you need people that can handle the basic parts of the business, so that you can step in and deal with the crazy stuff. But you don't have time to do that if you're out running around putting in bandit signs. And I'm not saying that don't do that, right? Because I did that. That's how we grew. But once you get to a point where you have enough money, if you want to do more deals, maybe you outsource the bandit signs to a young college kid, and that frees you up to do other stuff like negotiate contracts, which is probably the highest and best use of your time. So those are some things that I have sucked at over the years and gotten better at, right? So some things that I've done right. So this is the other side of the coin. Work smart, not hard. That's one thing my daddy taught me, right? Don't do things the hardest way possible. Listen to people that have gone before you, and follow what they've done, right? I feel like there's this thing in society today, in our culture, like everybody wants to, I'm not going to do it the way anybody else does it. I'm going to do my own thing. Like, I get individuality and stuff, but man, like, take a template that somebody else has done that's successful, and clone that or model that into your own business, right? And I'm not saying you shouldn't take what's useful and kind of discard some stuff, because everybody's business is just a little bit different, right? Like, we all run different business. Even within my own town, my brother and I run like a little bit different businesses, right? So there's things that I do that he wouldn't do, things that he does that I wouldn't do, things that somebody in Phoenix does, that I don't do. Maybe it's because of the way our marketing works, but find somebody who's successful and at least model after what they're doing. So have a plan, right? And then follow the plan, all of the plan, not just parts of it. I used to get frustrated a little bit, and I would say, well, my God, we're supposed to do 10 things to sell these properties, and we only do 6. And gosh darn it, never the same 6. Because, for some reason we've been doing something that works great, and then you just forget and you stop doing it, and then you start doing something else. And what happens is that's why you have inconsistent results, because you're not following a plan, right? And you're just haphazardly just bouncing all over the place. And then what happens? You have no consistency in what you're doing. So I just kind of screenshotted some stuff, and we'll talk on next Tuesday, like processes, and I'll show you exactly what all these things are. But we track everything in our company, and you have to. I wasn't very good at this when I first started out. I thought it was kind of dumb, but having a process, like down here on the bottom left, like that's a process for properties that everybody's responsible for. So we don't forget stuff, right? Everything gets done. I pulled these off of our server today. So, we have processes. We track stuff. Like, we track how long from the time the first lead comes in till it goes under contract, how long from the first contract to the selling contract, how long from the selling contract to the day it closed, right? So we're tracking everything in our business, like contract to contract. Right now we're at 38 days, which is pretty darn fast, with title companies being as screwed up and busy as they are, and having loads of refis coming at them. So we look at that 38 days. Great, that's good. How do we get it to 35? Right. So what in our system, what in our processes can we tweak to get that down? And my partner's way better at that than I am, but we're always looking at that as a team, as a management structure. What properties have closed this year? So we'll look backwards and say, so what's closed this year, and then we'll evaluate it. Like, okay, great. So let's take those properties and sort them by assignment fee, high to low. Right. So what types of properties are getting us the best return for our dollar? right? So what are our properties that are giving us $15,000 above assignment fees, right? And what kinds of properties are giving us the 3s, 4s, and 5s? So even though we thought it was going to be a 10 or 15, $20,000 deal, we made 3,900. What happened, right? And I'll just spoil it for you. Generally, it's nicer properties, right? Our average property that gave us $20,000 was $159,000 under contract. So which means we sold it for 170, 180, 190, something like that. And the properties that were the crap properties that we made 3, 4, 5, $6, $8,000 on were under 60, right? And some of them like $10,000. So if you put a $10,000 property under contract, it's very difficult to sell it for 30,000, right? It just doesn't. It's unless you caught somebody on their worst day and they gave it to you for next to nothing. It's just hard to do that, right? So for our company, and I can only tell you for us, like that process doesn't work because I can't support 20 people making $5,000 per deal. It just mathematically doesn't work. So we have to have bigger deals. But if you're small and you're just getting started, man, knock out those 5s and 6s all day long because it's just you, right? So I'm not saying don't do that. That's not what I'm saying, because it drives me crazy when people online or Facebook are like, you should only do $100,000 deals. Anybody that does anything less is stupid. Listen, if you live in San Francisco, of course you only do $100,000 deals. But the rest of us that live in America and the rest of America, that doesn't make any sense. So some other things I've done right, compressed time. I probably paid $400,000 or $500,000 for mentors and coaches and boot camps and masterminds and all those types of things over the years. Like I just came back from one that I was gone for 8 days. And what happens in these events, is you get around other successful people, right? So we like to say it's like getting around the campfire. So it's so easy when you're an entrepreneur, no matter what your business is to kind of stay in your bubble and just put your head down and just keep working all the time. And maybe you're struggling, maybe you're having some success, maybe you think you're doing good or bad or whatever it is. But man, I just encourage you, get somebody that can help you if you want. Like if you don't want to advance, that's, or not even advance. If you're cool with doing $10,000 a month at 2 assignment fees, fantastic. I'm going to be your biggest cheerleader. But if what you're looking to do is grow a little bit and maybe turn that 10,000 a month into 20 or 30,000, it's very doable. Get somebody that's been there ahead of you and can kind of look at what you're doing and go, oh, well, it's very easy for you to make the next jump because you're making this mistake, right? Or you just need to make this adjustment, or, instead of marketing this way, you need to do this, or, hey, I've listened to a couple of your calls and you need to say this to sellers and maybe make this adjustment with buyers. Or maybe here's a strategy, some education that you weren't implementing, right? So the way that you can compress time and go faster is coaching and mentoring and education, that kind of stuff. I just can't tell you how valuable that is. And I'm in just a ton of masterminds, and sometimes it's a grind, right? You're like, oh my God, I got to go do this, or I got to jump on this call. But every single time after I do it, I'm like, God darn it, why haven't I been doing that? Squirrel it down, and I come in and meet with my team in the morning. I'm like, here's what we're adding in. This is what we've been screwing up. I talked to somebody, like we made a pretty not major shift, but we added in some big stuff about 2 weeks ago that I came back from a mastermind, and we implemented it. Every time I come back, we make like some kind of shift, and it can add 50 or 60 grand to our bottom line for the year. So know what your end goals are, right? Like, where do you want to go? What do you want to do? Like, what is it that you want to do, right? Like maybe what my company does isn't what you want to do, right? Like scaling up is not for everybody. It's expensive and it's hard, and there's certainly a learning curve. But if you do want to do that, and have a bigger company, then go find somebody who's scaled up to teach you. Don't do what we did, which was figure it out on your own, because it can be painful, right? It can be painful and it can be expensive. When Tag and I decided to do this 3 or 4 years ago, like people knew what virtual wholesaling was, but like nobody had done it and advertised like here's how you do it. Here's a little book on how to wholesale in 30 different markets around the country, right? It like really didn't exist. Now there's people saying that they do it, and whether they do or not is up to you. But so know what your end goals are. I'm sorry about that. And one of the things we've done right is we've learned how to contract properties 500 miles away. So the way that you talk to Miss Betty in her living room is going to be a little bit different than you talk to her on the phone, right? I hope that makes sense. It's just a different strategy, because when you're in person, right, now I can look you in the eye, and I have a sense of like how you're feeling from your body language, and like from the look in your eyes, and I mean, if you're real squinty and kind of closed off, they're just things that you can sense, even if you're not like this super trained, body language guy. Like all of us have an innate just sense of those things, right? Because we're human and we talk to people all day long. If you're trained and you understand mirroring and matching, then you're even ahead of the game. But how do you do that when you're on the phone, right? Like if she crosses her leg, I don't know to cross my leg, and she doesn't see me doing it. So, how is it that we train our people to negotiate over the phone and get things contracted, right? A lot of it has to do with tone of voice, right? That's just one of a bunch of different things. Like, how do you contract a property that you've never seen, right? It's different. Even when I would go here in Chattanooga and I would go see a property, like, of course, you can touch it and look at it and bounce on the floors, and you can see if it's sturdy. But how do you do that, on something that far away? So that's one thing that we figured out. And I'll be honest, that was like, for me, for a little bit, like that was a little bit of a thing in my brain where the gear wasn't turning, because I couldn't figure that out until we just learned how to do it, kind of through trial and error. Same thing with photos and video. You have a deal 500 miles away. So like Miss Betty, like, how do I explain to her that, hey, we're going to have to come over and see the house 2 or 3 times. And here's why, here are the steps, like, these are the steps that we're going to do. And I'm going to say, Miss Betty, well, so we're talking over the phone here, and I understand everything you're saying. First thing is I'm going to send somebody over there that works for me, that's going to take some pictures and video and send that back. So I can kind of evaluate the deal and sort of see what types of repairs it's going to need. And then I'm going to send some contractors over that can give me some estimates on those things, right? So probably 2 times, no more than 3, we'll get in and out of there, and we'll get this done for you as quick as we can, right? So you have to, like, just being able to say that was kind of a big hurdle. I know it sounds very commonsensical, but for me, that was an issue. So everybody has a little bit different issues. And then the last thing was, figuring out how to sell deals even when we don't have a buyer's list ahead of time, right? So it's very easy to say, okay, I'm gonna do this virtually. What in the world am I gonna do when I have property in Concord, New Hampshire? Like, who even knows where Concord, New Hampshire is? Like, what am I gonna do, right? So you have to have that process, that plan, like we talked about earlier, knowing the property, being able to understand how to use list source or PropStream, pull those buyers, get that list, and then what do you do with that list? How do you effectively market to those people? So yeah. So those are some of the things we've done right. So that's kind of the end for tonight. That, goodness gracious, that was an hour and a half. I went a little bit long. So on Saturday at 10 a.m., we're going to do kind of part 2, which is multiple offers, acquisition strategy, talking to sellers, how you make multiple offers and increase your close rate. So yeah, so that is kind of where we're going to stop for tonight. And I don't want to keep everybody up too late, but let's see. I don't know if anybody had any questions. I haven't really been watching. I've been talking, so I haven't been watching the chat screen. You'll take Carl Lentz. We'll take a. Let me see. How do I unmute everybody? Let's see. Do I have to do it manually?
We can unmute ourselves.
Can you do that? Well, that would be perfect. I'm glad somebody here is a Zoom expert. I should have put them in charge.
I will attest. David can sell deals fairly fast. I think the deal that we did, he's like, I was going to get this, but I sold it. It was like a day, I think. Like all of a sudden it was sold. So
yeah, it did take a long time because there was dead people. So
it did take
that process of working through all that to clear the title. That did take, I don't know, what, 4 or 5 weeks. So I'm sorry it took so long. We rushed them along.
That's not your fault. Yeah, I knew that was going to happen. It was the fact that you already found a buyer. I was like, holy, I didn't even blink, and you're like, I already sold it. I'm like, holy.
So, I think I kind of gotten busy. That might have even been like a day later or something. But yeah, we were able to find a buyer for that one. Pretty cool.
Surprisingly.
So bring
Surprising.
us more Chattanooga deals. We'd love to sell them for you.
I'm still working a couple leads. Don't worry. I'm still on it.
Awesome. Well, I got a couple more minutes. If anybody has any questions, hopefully everybody took some notes, but if you got a specific question, I'll be happy to try to answer it. You know, anybody who wants to unmute themselves and ask, I'm happy to do it. If not, we can call it a night. So you guys tell me.
Hey, David, are you doing anything with large 50 units plus, or are you just mainly sticking with the smaller stuff?
I am not, but I've got some partners. In fact, I had a call today. A guy who had some, how are you, man? I owe you a call, man. I know you messaged me and I was going to Texas and I forgot you. So call me tomorrow, dude.
Definitely.
I don't know. That's a team that we're getting ready to start here. Probably we're going to kind of JV with a guy out of Texas that does a lot of stuff. We're going to run the team here and go after 20 to 100 unit multifamily. So we're getting into that like pretty quick, because so now the reason that we're able to do that and kind of run a different vertical is because our team here is running pretty stable. So we've got a mobile home team that we're going to start, as well as a multifamily team. So yes is the answer, just not yet, brother.
All right, brother.
Oh man, call me, man.
I will. Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
All right.
Anybody else?
How many deals do you guys have per dispo rep?
Man, that's a good question. I've got 3 because one just left and got married. Typically I have 4. Usually what I like to do, I don't like to give them too much, right? So same way that I don't give our buyers too many options, I don't want to give them too many, because if I give them too many, they start bouncing around a lot. So typically what we'll do is they'll have like 3 to 4 each at a time. I don't have one up here, but I could. So I keep like a spreadsheet of all of our properties, and then like each dispo rep has like the ones that they're actively working on. And generally I've got a bunch that are kind of on hold, and on hold usually means we're waiting on pictures or title work, or there's something like we haven't released it because maybe something's squirrely. But I think one I've got right now, she's got 5, another one, she's down to 3 because she sold 2 this week. But like that 3 to 5 range is kind of where they're at. And I tell them, you have to sell some to get more, right? So yeah, 3 to 5 is kind of where it's at. And we meet with them every morning, either Taylor does or I do. And we say, where are you at on your properties? Which are your hot ones? What can you contract today? Which ones do you have people out that might be a little bit further out? So what we try to do is really keep them focused on their 2 hottest ones all the time, right? So as those go, then kind of things just kind of work their way to the top. Does that make sense? Yeah,
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Cool, man. Yeah, no problem. Great question. Anyone else?
Hey, David, I have a question.
Yeah, man. What's up?
What did I do? I was just going to say, at the point of contact or contract, as soon as you make it, are you marketing right away, or are you waiting for title to clear?
So I've done both, right? Up until last year, we always started marketing right away, right? Immediately. And then what happened, we went into a market, like we made a bad choice. We went into a market in Alabama, and we had a bunch of properties die because we couldn't sell them. We didn't understand the market, which is why we're so fastidious about it now. But the title company sent us a bill for $1,400 in title searches. So again, this was a failure, right? So everybody kind of stepped back and said, let's address this a little bit. And we kind of overcorrected a little bit. And we were in the process of switching to a nationwide title company at the time. And we started not sending both contracts until, we didn't send the acquisitions contract until we had the dispositions contract. And what happened was our days from contract to close jumped out to about almost 50, right? Which is too long. Because the most important thing in all of your businesses is your cash churn cycle, right? So from the time you spend money on marketing, how long does it take you to get that back? So you don't want that to be too long, because the longer it goes, like the more money you have out there, right? The more money you've got invested in marketing and payroll and operations and all those things before it comes back. So we switched to a new title company, and I jumped on the phone with them and said, hey, here's where we're at. Contracts are taking a long time to close. So basically, I got the owner on the phone. We made a deal. that he made for us that said, hey, we'll let you have up to 25% of your contracts go bad because you're bringing us so many deals and we're closing all, and the deal was they're going to close just about all of our nationwide deals. So pretty much everything outside of Chattanooga, they close for us. So now we're back to the other way. So we've kind of swung the pendulum back, and I think we have a nice middle ground. And the minute we get the contract, I have a full-time transaction coordinator, and she'll package up everything and send that off. So the transaction coordinator, what she handles, she does all the coordination back and forth with the title company. And the reason that we have a nationwide title company, we prefer to use that, is because we're in so many markets. If she had to call 14 different title companies every day to check on status, she'd quit, right? I mean, she's the most organized person I've ever seen, and she'd just blow her brains out because it's crazy. So, if you're going to work in multiple markets, it's much easier to have one title company or two title companies that you can deal with, because nobody actually works in all 50 states. There are some weird things out there, but so anyways, so now she handles sending off the contract. We have another person who's our assistant that handles getting seller documents, right? Because the title company wants documents from the seller. Is there a mortgage? What's your name? Who else is on the title, contact info, that kind of stuff. So we have a process for that. And we just watch those contracts carefully. So the only one that we won't ever send out is if it comes across and I think it's like a real sketchy kind of marginal deal. I'll be like, hey, Heather, let's not send this one until I get the pictures back and I've got a little bit better gut feel about this, right? Because again, not every deal is the perfect unicorn. Some deals are, you look at them on paper, they might look good. Somebody else looks at it and maybe it's not what we're looking for. So, I'm real protective of that 25% because I don't want to write the title company a check, right? It's an added expense and it's never in anybody's budget. So
Exactly. Thanks.
cool, man. Any other questions? No? Cool. All right. Anyone else? No? All right, guys. Well, I think we're going to call it a night. It's almost 9:40. Hopefully you guys like that. Send me a message if you did. Tell me what you didn't like. I'll try to adjust it before we do the next one. So the next one is going to be on, again, Saturday, 11 a.m. Eastern time. We're going to go into hopefully this much detail on sellers, and I'll talk about our 3-offer strategy, which I hadn't actually planned on doing that, but I did a thing Monday night for another coach and his group, and they really loved it. So it's always a big hit when we talk about that. So
Are you able to send the recording of this? Because I missed the first
yeah, I hope so. It says it records. It didn't the other night. So
if it doesn't,
it should. And what I'll do is if you guys send me a message, what I'll do, I think it usually comes in overnight, and I'll like put it into a Dropbox or Google Drive or something. And I'll be able to share it. So
awesome. Thank you
cool.
so much.
All right, guys and gals, everybody have a wonderful night. Go get some sleep, and let's kill it tomorrow.
Thanks. Have a good night.
Yeah.
Appreciate you. Bye.
Thank you, guys.